All right, everyone, so now we're going to transition to a little writing activity. But first I want to know if any of you are really good at arguing. Like, you really get your point across well, you convince others to take your side.
I am.
Cool, that's a really good skill. We're going to be working on that today. Because if you want your voice to be heard, you need to make sure that your argument is clear. So we're going to be talking about argumentative or persuasive essays, which are basically just essays where, like it sounds, you're arguing something and you're trying to get people to agree with your argument. And so usually there's one sentence that kind of sums up this argument, usually kind of near the beginning of your essay. Does anyone know what that's called?
The introductory sentence?
I would say an introductory sentence is, I would maybe call that like the first sentence of your essay, and usually I like to start with like an introductory sentence and then have a couple sentences that lead up to what's called a thesis statement. And so a thesis statement is that main summary. And when you're making an argument and writing a thesis, it's all about the facts. So we have our little acronym here of FACT, and I'll also write thesis, so you know how to spell it. So for FACT, F is for focused. You want narrow, specific topics. You don't want to get lost in really broad topics that can be too challenging or too difficult to make clear what you're arguing to the reader. Next, you want your statement to be arguable, and that's the A. And this just means that someone could take the other side or a slightly different side of the argument. So for an example, a statement that wouldn't be arguable is Providence is the capital of Rhode Island. That's just a fact. No one can say otherwise. However, if you said Providence is the best city in Rhode Island, that's an arguable statement. Someone could argue something different. Next, we have C. C is for concise. And that just means you want your thesis statement to be really short and simple. I sometimes, or a lot of the times, kind of struggle with this one because I like to make my thesis statements long and pretty, and I like to throw in fancy words or make them complex. But really, you've got your whole essay to explain yourself and to throw in all those fancy words you want to use. And so you should really just try to keep the thesis statement really short and simple so your reader can understand it like that. And then we have T. T is for tenable, which is a weird fancy word, but it just means that your statement is supportable. So do you have evidence or proof? Do you have experiences or facts that you can use to support this statement you're making? And usually if you've chosen a topic or chosen an argument, it's because you already do have something you can use to support it. So I would say that this one is probably not going to be too challenging. And I know that this is kind of a vocab lesson, so don't worry if these new words, if it takes you a little time to process them. But before I move on, does anyone have any questions? Okay, so in that case, we are going to, in a little bit, we're going to look at some examples of thesis statements together, and then we'll kind of edit them as we see fit. And then we'll have some time where we can work on our own and practice writing thesis statements. But first, we are going to practice a little cheer or song to help us remember how to write thesis statements. So as I said before, it's all about the facts. So it goes like this. If you want to write a thesis, think of facts. If you want to write a thesis, think of facts. Is it focused, arguable? Is it concise and tenable? If you want to write a thesis, think of facts. Does everyone feel like they can join in now?
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. If you want to write a thesis, think of facts. If you want to write a thesis, think of facts.
Is it focused, arguable? Is it concise and tenable? If you want to write a thesis, think of facts.
All right, nice job, everyone.